So where David and I started with this was I noticed on the group in the beginning that there was a great interest in children and activating or creating conversation amongst children and activating and mobilizing kids. But we then moved to this intergenerational conversation, which I think there's some power in that. And I love what Katz is saying. I love that, and there, so that is one format. So if we say the intergenerational conversation is really important, because maybe as an older generation, maybe now we're starting to feel the urgency, but we, as Katz highlighted, the power of that platform was to show the complete polarization of paradigm around climates, and that kids are probably more informed and more
And
motivated than
in
an older
respect of
generation.
intergenerational, is it kids or are we actually focused on 20 to 30-year-olds? Because or 18 to 30-year-olds? Is it like how do we get to the universities? How do we get the people who are active in climate with the universities, and how can we get them to intersect with us alta kakas?
I think that's a good question. So, what do we mean by intergenerational, and why are we, seeking that particular definition? So I think there's a job with younger kids that are articulate and have something to say, and we want to hear what that is about. But then, as you mentioned, there's a young group that is becoming effective in the space. So be they students, be they young professionals who are taking up new jobs that are, becoming available in the sustainability or climate or, polycrisis space, ESG space, so but there must be a specific objective there, because they are kind of mobilizes in corporate space, whereas the kids are opening up a bigger conversation with leadership. So I think if we get clear about that.
So when you say that the kids are opening up a conversation, so this is the way I see it, and I've got no idea because this is not my 100% world. There's a lot of young people and a lot of older people who are taking to the streets and making a massive noise about how unfair and how crazy the situation we're in are. And I'm not sure whether there's a real ask behind that. When I'm thinking about Extinction Rebellion, there's a lot of noise, which is great, and a lot of energy, but I don't know whether it's very focused, and I don't know whether that's actually going to make a difference. So I think there's also a lot of talk in the corporate space, which is, let's be honest, the most influential space that there is in the world at the moment, I think. There's a lot of talk there as well, and not very much action. So we've got two polarized, we're angry, we hate corporates. We want to make a difference, kinda, but we don't know how. And there's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of content, there's a lot of sharing, or there's a lot of shouting. I'm not sure how much listening or connection there is, and I don't know.
So maybe that's what we bring to the table, Cherie. Maybe that's what we bring to the table, Kat. We bring the connection between the two and give them focus to say, okay, what are the actions that we can actually do? How can we, once we actually bring them to a forum, we bring the two to the forum, and the power is to say, okay, this is what you have to say. What are the actions? And we, in respect to the media side, how do we create those actions?
I'm sorry, I want to interject there. I'm not sure that it's as haphazard or sort of disorganized as you might. I mean, I'm not talking about sort of Extinction Rebellion. I'm not familiar with them that much, but I've watched the school marches and what they've been doing and how they've been organizing, and I think you'll find that there's a little bit more solidity to the process than just kind of like a bunch of kids going out to the streets when they feel like. The Australian
I understand.
Sorry, go on.
So I understand. What is it? What's the action that they're trying to drive? I can see why they would be out in droves on the street, and so they should be, and how fantastic they're being activists. But what is it they're actually trying to achieve? What's the action?
Well, I think to be fair to that, we should probably invite people who are sort of involved in that organizations and talk with them. But what I've seen from the sideline is that there is a thing called the Australian Youth Climate Coalition that's been involved at the core of organizing a lot of that, and there is a network, a plethora of local organizations and slightly bigger organizations that are talking to other and trying to get into some sort of a coherent discussion about it. I think ultimately they hope to exert political pressure through taking enough kids and their parents into the street, right? And it might not be the best way to go about it, but I don't think they're as kind of like, sort of loose as it seems. My older kid has attended a course that was organized by the Climate Coalition last year, which was a kind of a leadership course for children. They had 120 kids from around Australia attending, and there's stuff there. And again, like they're not necessarily the most effective organizations, but then my experience with most not-for-profits is a lot of them are not. And so I think I'm not saying that what we're saying is not valid. I'm just saying we should probably talk to people who actually work in that space to get a little bit more information.
Understand. But Michael, what we want to talk about, what this forum's about, is what media things do we need to actually do? What are the things we can do to get them engaged? If, for example, who's our target market? Are we trying to get to the youngsters from schools? Are we trying to get to the 20 to 35-year-olds? Are we trying to get from the 35 to 60-year-olds? This group that we've got right now is focused on media, and how can we use media specifically? What in my head it was getting maybe a show on Netflix, getting shows on, getting people to interview each other. So like the center of optimism. So we've got this guy, Victor Purton, who's passionate about optimism. And what his goal is to video and get a statement from 1 million people around the world of what optimism is. So maybe one of the things we can do is to say, what do you think of climate and what can we do? And get 1 million people giving their views.
Can I just
and create media? Yeah.
Can I just,
sure.
So was it Einstein that said you should spend 99% of your time understanding the problem and then 1% of your time figuring out what the solution is?
There's a quote that's attributed to Einstein about 55
and everyone else, no doubt.
But it's not actually him. I looked at the quote investigator, but the idea is very solid. Ask the right questions and the right answer will present itself. Yeah.
So I wonder, rather than thinking about the what and the how, we should be thinking more clearly about the why, and then the what and the how should come from that, rather than talking about what we're going to do rather than why we're going to do it. I'm just going to throw that in.
It's a good question. I also think that there is a segment kind of proposition here, and that's because, to my mind, a lot of the power, in terms of the balance of power, in terms of governance and decisions towards more green, eco-minded sort of mindset versus the older guard. They're very minor percentages between those two, because in some ways they're actually quite similar, but that's a different discussion. And so if you think about 2 elections away, the next 7 years, for example, right? That's a chunk of voters that could actually tip the balance in a lot of those sort of policies. And so I think in that sense, there is a segment of, the 11 to 18 years old that is worth talking to on their power and how they have that power, versus the 19-year-old to the 30 years old, who are the segment who are looking to, like ahead in life and saying, well, what kind of work do we have? Are we going to have children? I hear a lot of young people saying, I don't think I want to have children, come bringing children into this. That's a massive human issue that I don't know if we've ever faced, right? And then there is, I don't know how to segment that from above that, But the truth is that anyone in this circle, and probably one generation younger than us, should be asking themselves what kind of help, service, training, leadership support, can we give those two generations in order for them to be able to deal with those massive issues that are coming up ahead. So just in terms of asking questions, I guess what I'm trying to suggest is that we probably need to ask slightly different questions to different age group and see how we mobilize for that.
Yeah, but I'm coming back to the...
sorry, David.
No, I want to answer to Katz on something, but also to Ivan, who says, who is our target audience? Katz said that the main thing is to change the mindset of the corporate power, because they are the ones who dictate, of course, a lot of the green and non-green fossil economy. And one way to get to them is that we tell them, that was my original presentation, we don't want to hear your slogans or your greenwashing, as it's called. We want to hear how you talk to your children, because that makes it immediately personal. They can't sell slogans to their children and grandchildren, and I don't think they would do it. So it changes immediately their mindset, and then the younger generation, be it student or be it high school student, immediately can relate to it, because they say, oh, this guy is not just a CEO, he's also a human being who has a way to talk to and how we can approach him. So I think this is something unique that hasn't been done to humanize this dialogue, this intergenerational dialogue, instead of throwing slogans at each other.
As Paul Werbos said, it's as much about connecting and collaborating as opposed to solving a climate issue. If we can actually get people to connect with each other and collaborate with each other, then I think it's a good thing.
Ivan, do you remember in one of the presentations that we had, and I can't remember on which forum, so I can't quote it, but one person talked about different diversities, and they say that MIT has done research, and the most effective, impactful diversity was age. Remember that?
No.
Anyway, yeah, definitely interesting one.
Jan, what do you think? I haven't heard from you.
I'm stuck on Katz's question, which is the why.
Yeah.
I think for me, the why that I was going to say should, that's a value judgment, but the why that is driving the conversation for me is it's later than we think. It's later than the media is telling us. It's later than, Paul's got a wealth of facts and knowledge in his head that frankly needs to be out there so that people are better informed about the truth around where we are as a planet. And I think the call to action needs to be for large shifts in policy, both in corporations as well as in government. And I think the way we get there is through conversation, through the multi-generational, intergenerational. I think that's all part of the solution. But I do think that for me, the most important piece is getting the truth out so that people can act in an informed way.
The other thing for me, sorry, Jan, that was great because it made me think as well.
And I'm going to refill my coffee. I'll be right back.
Is, the future is going to require something radically different, to the way the world runs today. Like there are so many paradigms that are going to have to shift dramatically to kind of urgently respond to this late in the day stage. And so I get the sense that, governments are going to have to make brave calls. Organizations are going to have to make brave calls. And as a as a citizen, you know, I need to participate in some brave change. So this is, for me, the tricky piece is that I don't think this is just about acting. There is a level of acting. You know, I can act to recycle my waste. I can act by cycling somewhere instead of driving somewhere. I can take up those small actions, and they will contribute to such an extent, or to some extent. But, you know, how does one actually start engaging the deeper shifts and the bigger shifts at all those levels? And I don't know if that is too ambitious for this group,